I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. All right. Happy Friday, guys. Welcome to Sab's podcast. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. If you are new, I want to let you know that Sab's podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. And you can catch me here Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. And I do see that Jill is here. Jill, if you're ready, just give me a thumbs up and I'll bring you in. All right, here we go. Hello.
Hey, hi, Sabby.
All right, guys. My special guest tonight is Dr. Jill Stein. She's a physician, activist, and former Green Party presidential candidate. Welcome back, Jill. Thanks so much for coming on.
Great to be with you, Sabby. Seems like you never stop. I think your schedule is 24/7. You seem to be broadcasting constantly. And we're a better world for it.
Yeah, it feels that way sometimes. It's really interesting. I saw you at the Rage Against the War Machine rally. I got a chance to speak to you there, and then I saw you at the Julian Assange documentary premiere in Somerville as well. So I think you've been pretty busy too.
Just trying to keep up with you, Sabby.
All right, Jill. So I wanted to talk to you tonight about this conflict with Russia and Ukraine and this recent agreement with Xi Jinping and Putin, and whether or not this could be a pathway towards some type of peace. And also, where do we go in reference to the anti-war movement, and how can we build a larger coalition? But in reference to this agreement between Putin and Jinping, where do you think that this is going? And is this a positive thing, or do you feel there are negative parts about this agreement as well?
You know, from my familiarity with it, which is only, very broad brushstroke, I think it's pretty great. Its bottom line is to ensure the security of all the critical players, and that has to be worked out in detail in negotiations. One of the best things about it, I think, is that Zelensky has indicated an interest, to the horror of the U.S. Department of Defense, military, State Department, et cetera, deep state. They don't like this idea of peace. And what's his name? John Kirby, the spokesperson for the National Security Council, was quoted as saying, basically, oh my God, that would just be the worst thing in the world if a ceasefire comes out of this, which tells you really, how believable all this lip service is that the U.S. gives to the sovereignty of Ukraine, nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine, which has been used as the reason why we can't have negotiations and we can't, we can't slow things down. It's all in Ukraine's hands, they've been saying. The U.S. has been saying. But now that Ukraine is interested in this peace deal that Xi put on the table, now it's suddenly, oh no, it's not about Ukraine's sovereignty. It's about keeping the war effort on. It's outrageous. So that is very exciting, and Putin has expressed interest in it as well. We sort of see hope breaking out around the world, with the with the US kind of being bypassed, we have a lot of weapons to sell, as you know, and that's kind of our prime directive, is to get out there and sell weapons. And of course, we are the biggest weapons dealer and have been, forever, I think. But also, as Martin Luther King described, we are the greatest purveyor of violence the world has ever known. And those two things kind of come together in our agenda to prevent peace. And we have done that at every turn, really, with Russia. Since the Second World War, we have really been on a crusade to either provoke war or to essentially strong arm Russia or the Soviet Union out of existence. And I know you know well, Sabby, about the US military doctrine called full spectrum dominance, where they did us the favor, the US military, the Pentagon did us the favor of taking the guesswork out of it. They made it absolutely clear what the driver is here for the United States. And going back as far as 1992, which is the first time I've seen it really spelled out, the Pentagon plan was published in the New York Times, at least excerpts of it, saying that the US will not tolerate any competitors, economically or militarily. We will not tolerate competitors rising in a region or globally. No competitors are allowed. So we have been in the business of basically keeping Russia down or dismantling Russia, as the case may be. And so in the case of Ukraine, this war, which really dates back to 2014 and in some ways before then as well, Ukraine has had really a long-standing civil war that goes far beyond my timeline of history, personally, my own knowledge, but certainly going back to 2014, the active war, the hot war, began at that point after a U.S. Supported, perhaps instigated coup, where Victoria Nuland revealed in all her glory how she was micromanaging the outcome of that coup and exactly who would be in power and who would not. And there it was for the whole world to see. That's just an example of how, this war, which is now, a hot war and verging on a superpower hot war as well. It has been long in the making, and has really, it's kind of an inevitable consequence of full spectrum dominance and the fact that Russia has resources and Russia has an economy and Russia has, a lot of oil and fossil fuels and also produces grain and so on. So Russia is a power by virtue of its size, its location, its resources, and it has been in the target hairs of the US for quite, for really as far back as we can go on that account. So, to your first question, is there hope in this plan, in Xi's plan? Absolutely, there is. And as China is rising in stature with the current peace proposal in Ukraine, on top of another peace proposal that they actually just implemented, producing an accord between Iran and Saudi Arabia, who've been at each other's throats for a long time. China is taking a very different position from the United States. The United States is selling a lot of weapons and keeping its competitors down. And that doesn't make for peace in the world or anywhere. And now that China is acquiring the momentum and the stature to actually begin really, ushering the peace process, it's a very hopeful development. There are also prospects of peace between Syria and Iran, and also at through the auspices of, actually that one I think is being promoted by Russia. But in terms of China's deal, the news just came out today, the first I saw it, that basically the war in Yemen is shutting down. And that again is very much thanks to the peace accord that China established between Saudi Arabia and Iran. So the outcome of that is that they're now suddenly willing to deal with each other and to, create a peace process before the United States could even get its own act together, to like begin withdrawing its support and the weapons that it is throwing into that war, and the intelligence and refueling and all sorts of resources that have really enabled us to keep that war going so we can sell more weapons, maintain chaos in the world. So more power to China. And I'm glad that they are standing up and making peace possible. Your other question about the anti-war movement, this is why we really need, there are a million reasons why we really need an anti-war movement. The war machine and the war in Ukraine are unbelievably dangerous and harmful. It's really a double whammy to people around the world, but in particular here in the United States. This war and the war machine it's part of are impoverishing and endangering every one of us. It is not a war that Adam Schiff would have you think is a war over there. It is a war that is proceeding down the slippery slope rather quickly towards nuclear engagement. And it's just not understood, I think, at all, and the press certainly pays this no attention, that it doesn't take much in terms of nuclear detonations to trigger nuclear winter. In other words, when a nuclear bomb goes off, it kicks up a lot of debris that goes up into the sky high enough that it's above the weather. So the rain and the winds are not going to wash it down. So that dust and debris is up there way high. I think it's called the stratosphere. And it creates a veil so that sunshine can't come in. And if sunshine can't come in, then we don't grow food. And depending how much is kicked up, and by the way, it doesn't stay over Ukraine or stay over Russia. It's distributed around the globe. So if U.S. Predator politicians in all of their glory who are saying, basically, let them have the nukes, just nuke them, and there's been a fair amount of that discussion. They're really talking about nuking ourselves, because to the extent that we kick up that dust and debris, and it doesn't take many nuclear detonations to kind of reach that critical threshold. And in fact, the size bomb, the nuclear bombs that went off in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, those were about 15 to 20 kilotons is the term that's used. Kilo is 1,000 tons of dynamite, basically. They were equivalent to 15 kilotons. Well, now nuclear weapons are as much as 1,000 times stronger. So it doesn't take many of these big bombs to, in fact, if a maximum bomb was used, and it's believed that Moscow and New York City, Washington, D.C., the important, so-called important large cities, that they are targeted with not just 1 megaton, but more like 20 megatons. So these are just ginormous. It doesn't even one of those would basically wipe out 250,000 people.
Yep.
These are, these are the numbers that have been crunched by the scientists who are in the best position to do that number crunching. And that's what they come up with. We cannot afford to have nuclear engagements. And so that's one of the reasons why we got to stop it. And, how do we do that? We've got to build that movement. In my view, these movements are inseparable because we are really at the breaking point, not only with regard to war and militarism and nuclear weapons, but also, with regard to the economy and healthcare and, and just the many forms of injustice, 500,000 people on the street every night without housing, that we're really at the breaking point. And I think the name of the game is for the movements for peace and justice to be working together, and not to mention the climate, catastrophe. We're really at the breaking point on every one of these existential issues: crushing inequality, climate collapse, endless war, and, generally the assault on democracy and rising authoritarianism. We need a movement. We need a lot of what's going on in France, which is also going on now in Greece and in Spain. In the UK, the transportation workers are on strike. As RBN has been saying, and you've been saying, many of us have been saying for many, many years, we need to build the capacity for the general strike. And at the end of the day, I think that is what's going to change policy, because the oligarchy has a stranglehold right now on our electeds. The bums need to be thrown out, but the system is so rigged that you can't throw them out. Right. So, we need a social movement on top of a political rebellion.
I agree. One of the things that's been really interesting in reference to the sanctions. So the US government put sanctions on Russia, but what has happened is that it's actually not hurting Russia as much as they thought it would, but it is hurting other countries. So for example, North Korea just announced, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, they are experiencing a food shortage, and apparently it's really bad. And part of that is because of the fact that they do rely on fertilizer from Russia in order to grow food. So there's an issue there with North Korea. People in the UK have told me that they can't afford to pay their heating bills. So they're going to facilities in the UK called warm banks, where they go there to get heat. This is really crazy when you think about it. And then they go back home to a cold house or cold apartment. So it seems like the sanctions that the US government put on Russia is actually hurting other countries more than it's hurting Russia.
That's right. And, it's hurting us too, and has really just added another dimension to the economic pain that so many people are feeling in this country. The lower 50% of our income spectrum has 2% of the wealth in this country. 2% of our wealth and resources are distributed among 50% of the people, and the top 10%, is hoarding 70%. So this is a very bad picture from the get-go. And then you add to that food prices and energy, which are skyrocketing, and this has everything to do with sanctions, war, which has disrupted supply chains, and corporate greed, which has taken, advantage of having an excuse to raise prices. So this is, it's really become, just a disaster. And your point, Sabby, about sanctions causing hunger, the numbers are said to double globally. So there are now 350 million people who are at serious risk of, food insecurity. And you take that food insecurity, it doesn't take much to push those people over the edge. Add a little bit of war, add, like the US severe sanctions to Afghanistan. First we destroy that country, and then we hoard their foreign deposits. We hoard that and prevent them from having access to it, like we've done to Venezuela as well. It's no wonder that the countries of the global South are so ready to welcome China to the global stage as an alternative economy, as an alternative currency. You probably heard that Brazil and China have just agreed to trade in Chinese currency. And we're going to see this happening all over the place. So get ready, USA. USA has been telling the world, we're the leader, respect us. It's our rules-based order. It's not international law anymore. It's rules-based order, which is whatever we declare it is whenever we want. It's a joke that we have been usurping leadership as basically, a thug, as really an international, mafia. Really, just kind of the bully, the strong arm guy. So, it's no wonder that the nations of the world are, they want an end to sanctions, and they're looking for another currency, and they're looking for another system. So, it's like the US made this bed for itself. And if they weren't such, what should I say, psychopaths, sociopaths, they're just, it's like mind-boggling that they treat the world the way that they do. It's, you couldn't get away with that in any kind of a community, in any kind of a face-to-face community. This sort of abuse would not be tolerated. So, it's just no surprise. Suddenly people are saying, hey, that emperor has no clothes whatsoever. And we're out of here. This is not a leader. This is a misleader. And a predator. The predator state is really, gone about as far as it can go. And I think the U.S. needs to change its ways. But, Wall Street and the war profiteers are having too much fun. They're not going to notice, which is why the bums really have to be thrown out. Oligarchy does not reform itself. It needs to be shown the door.
Yeah, and I think people really need to fully understand the climate impact in reference to war, but not just war, the military in general. I think a lot of people don't understand this, but this was announced recently. I talked about this on the Community Church for Boston's channel recently. The UN's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change released a synthesis report that global emissions need to be slashed in half by 2030. So that's just around the corner. I don't think people understand, how much time we actually have here. And what I want people to also know is that it's not just war. It's not just drone strikes and bombs. It's also military vehicles. This is a piece I think a lot of people are not aware of, because those vehicles actually consume petroleum fuels, and petroleum-based fuels release CO2, nitrogen oxide, hydrocarbons, and carbon monoxide into the atmosphere. Those gases altogether, it actually increases the global temperature. And when the global temperature increases, that's how the ice caps begin to melt. This is a serious, serious issue. And I would challenge anyone who is a climate activist, you really need to start pushing back on politicians that have this rhetoric that is pro-war or that is pro-military, because especially if you're a climate activist, you have to know that the military industrial complex is the biggest contributor to this. So until you do something about that, recycling, like these are good things to do, recycling, compost, those things are still good, but it is very small when you compare it to the effect of the military industrial complex on the environment.
Exactly. Well said. I think, as you're pointing out, the U.S. military is the biggest source of fossil fuels for any organization. And if you're comparing nation states, and they're like almost 200 nations, it comes in at like number 47, something like that. So it's like a whole country, and it's way more than most countries. And because that is the military industrial complex, has such a stranglehold on our government, because they are so in bed with the major political parties, the parties of war and Wall Street. They don't even have to report their emissions, so no one's even keeping track. And the current Biden government is very proud, patting itself on the back and just praising its latest so-called climate bill, the Inflation Reduction Act. But it's so important for people to actually not take them at their word, to understand that, this is part of the, the information warfare, which really pervades all spheres. And if you actually look at the details of that bill, it is really a fossil fuels first bill. It does some good things, yes, but it also just gives away the store to fossil fuels. And when it says that, it's going to spend, I think it's, what is it, like $360 billion over 10 years, something like that. It's a significant number. It's not what it needs to be, but it's something. And I should check that number. So don't take that as a specific number at this point. But the point I want to make about that is that what they're describing when they talk about all this money that's going to fossil fuel, to climate, some of that is actually fossil fuels. And some of those expenditures are actually going for this thing that they call carbon capture. Carbon capture really doesn't exist. It's just an excuse to allow them to keep producing fossil fuels and to reassure people, oh, don't worry, we're going to be able to capture the carbon. Don't worry about it. And they're also putting nuclear under that. And we could have a long discussion about nuclear if need be. But at the end of the day, nuclear, even if it would work, they can't build it in time. The plants are very dangerous. It is energy intensive. It's not nearly as good as renewables. And so what they claim they're solving with the Inflation Reduction Act includes a lot of these false solutions, which are basically just giveaways to the industry, to the nuclear industry and to the fossil fuel industry. And just one infuriating detail from that bill that keeps getting swept under the rug. That bill requires that 60, 80 million, something like this, a huge number, I think it's 80 million acres of offshore water be leased for fossil fuel drilling, and 2 million be leased for onshore drilling every year. In other words, all this stuff has to be leased for drilling before any public lands can be used for large-scale renewable projects like large wind or large solar. You can't do any of that until you have absolutely pillaged our public lands first for fossil fuels. It's just like mind-boggling what is being swept under the rug here under the pretense that this is a climate bill. It's really a fossil fuels first bill. And the rub, the bottom line here is that these levels are not going down. If you look at the level of CO2, carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, it's constantly going up. And the IPCC, the UN commission that keeps track of these things, in spite of all the good stuff that they do, and they do a lot of good science, it gets watered down at the end of the day. So their reports in all the, 20 years, whatever it is that this has been going on, 30 years, they do not call for a phase out of fossil fuels. They just can't get themselves to say it. And, it's really it's an incredible indictment of this whole process and the liberal climate movement, which has been hijacked by the powers that be. The powers that be are not going to stand up to their corporate sponsors. They're not going to stand up to the political parties that are in bed with fossil fuels and nuclear and the rest. They're just not going to do it. They haven't done it yet. How much longer are you going to wait? You know, it really is, it's the breaking point. And we need to make the breaking point, the tipping point. And like you're pointing out, Sabby, bringing together the climate movement, which is really kind of in the final hours here, bringing together the climate movement, which needs to really stand up and demand transformative change with an eco-socialist Green New Deal. You know, it really needs to be a fundamental sea change in how we do business and what the economy looks like. You're not going to fix this around the margins with, you know, with electric cars. You know, it really needs a plan. It needs public coordination. It needs, you know, public ownership and guidance. You know, we really need to look at this as kind of the last chance on climate in the same way it's the last chance on nuclear. We need to ban nuclear weapons, period. You know, we not only need peace in Ukraine and, you know, the Taiwan-China thing, which is another created conflict. It's another engineered conflict where the US war industry is just making out like bandits. You know, they can't get enough of these kinds of conflicts. You know, Afghanistan went away, you know, so suddenly they had to create new conflicts, and boy, did they ever, they got them. And, you know, that just has to be stopped. And we need an end to the war. We need an end to climate collapse, and we need an end to the exploitation of working people, because at the end of the day, it's working people, it's unions that are the real driver of transformative change. You know, we need to be able to hold the general strike, and the general strike just doesn't have teeth unless working people are involved, you know, and transportation just isn't going anywhere, like what's happening in France, or the garbage isn't getting picked up like in France. You know, we need, or, you know, the healthcare workers are on strike. You know, we need to have workers who are leading the charge. And fortunately, we have some really enlightened, you know, labor leadership right now. You know, if you look at what the train workers union is calling for, you know, the union that was basically shut down with the leadership of the Democrats, who denied their right to strike for decent working conditions and a predictable schedule and time off so they can maintain their sanity and their families. You know, the Democrats led the charge to destroy their right to strike and make it impossible. But that, you know, the train workers union has been leading the charge in calling for basically public ownership of the railway. And I should correct what I called it. It's the Railroad Workers Union, and it's a combined union across several different railroad corporations. But, you know, they have the big picture, they have the courage, they have the vision. You know, this is the kind of leadership that we need. And between what they're doing, the fight that Starbucks and Amazon is fighting, many of the teachers unions and the nurses unions who are fighting for decent healthcare and safe staffing, you know, we have some really wonderful leadership. Many of them have called for abandoning the two-party straitjacket as well, which at the end of the day is essential, because if you're going to cave to what the parties are demanding, we'll never get there. You know, we need a political rebellion as well as a rebellion on the social issues.
One of the issues I see we're running into as well is that people just, or it seems like most Americans are still heavily propagandized in reference to the war empire. it seems like people have not fully woken up from the lies that we were told about the war in Iraq. You would think people would question these conflicts more after that, but people are not. And I want to show you something here. This happened recently. So Jose and a couple other activists, they have been confronting politicians. This is Nancy Pelosi about this war in Ukraine. I want to play this piece here because I want you to see just how the audience responds. It seems like a lot of people are still really asleep.
You know, Pelosi, that's a very good place for you in the depths of hell, because for some reason you have a very bad obsession of getting us into war. Hey, why is it that you did not admit that there were no WMDs in Iraq? You lied us into a war in Iraq. You got us into an invasion of Afghanistan. Now over 90% of those people are impoverished and are dying. Why don't you tell the truth about Nord Stream? Why did we destroy Nord Stream? We're leaving millions of Germans without energy. You have a knack for getting us into war. People like you should be arrested. You are.
It's like if you just look at the response from the people in the audience, that tells me that a lot of people are still asleep. And the thing is, he's correct. What he's saying is true, but it's very clear to me that a lot of people are just not, they don't really understand what's going on. And I don't know if it's because of mainstream media, but I have noticed, like, when you look at the numbers for the Vietnam War protests, there were a lot of people that woke up. We did not have internet during that time. There was no social media. We have more technology now, and more people seem to be asleep than they were back then. Now, some people may say the draft had something to do with that because people were directly impacted by that didn't even sign up to join the military by choice. Some people have said that they showed civilian casualties during the war in Vietnam, and they haven't done that since. So that woke up Americans. But some of the people who were around during that time are still alive today. And you would think they remember. And it seems like they have fallen for the propaganda as well.
Yeah, it's pretty mind-boggling. And I have to say that, you know, Jose was definitely going into the lion's den there, because anybody who's coming out, you know, to hear Nancy Pelosi, I couldn't tell who the other speaker was, but, you know, anybody in their right mind who's not, what should we say, asleep at the wheel, you know, is going to avoid a Nancy Pelosi talk like the plague. You know, it's not like you're going to learn something there. You're just going to hear exactly the same propaganda repeated over and over again. And it's very discouraging to look at demographics like that are just totally sleepwalking their way, you know, into our next, you know, catastrophe. But the polls tell a different story, you know, and that, I think, you know, is kind of the hopeful thing here, that if you look at the, you know, polls that ask, do you identify as a Democrat or a Republican? Those numbers are down and down and down. And right now they're about at an all-time low. I think, speaking from memory here, I think it's the high 20s for both. They're pretty similar. They kind of change places a little bit, but they both keep trending down. And the numbers of people who've just like blown them all off and said, you know, I'm throwing in the towel. You guys have thrown me under the bus. Thanks very much. We don't need this. You know, those are bigger and bigger. And the numbers of people who want other political options is growing and growing. So, you know, they, you know, they are on a nonstop propaganda campaign, and it's very hard to find anything on mainstream media that doesn't reinforce their message and kind of tell you that if you have a problem with the war in Ukraine, you know, you're crazy and you're the odd man out. And, you know, it's all designed to kind of pressure people into, what's it called? You know, manufactured consent. It's all about manufacturing consent for war on Wall Street. And, you know, so it's just so important, I think, for people not to listen to it, you know, and to just change what they listen to. They need to be listening to Revolutionary Blackout Network and Sabs podcast, and lots of independent media, which is doing really great work and is trouncing the the conventional cable channels and mainstream media and legacy media. Their numbers are going down and down, and the numbers of independent media are off the charts, which is why independent media is under such vicious attack from the mainstream. So, but the question you pose is really right. I think it's important to reject their conclusion that that we're basically a war culture and you've got to just deal with it and join it. That is wrong. But it is it's correct that to say what changes people's position. How do you get people to rethink this? And during the war in Vietnam, it was easy because from the get-go, young people opposed the war because we were dying for it, and the draft really brought it home, and then Martin Luther King being the fearless, visionary that he was, he had a huge impact and really helped, I think, the communities of color take a leadership role in fighting the war. So there were some really good things that helped bring that war to an end, but it took a long time, and in the same way in the war in Iraq, initially you were really, vilified if you opposed the war when it began.
Or canceled.
Canceled, yeah, absolutely. Whereas the people who were driving us into that war, they haven't been canceled, they haven't been tried as war criminals, as aiding and abetting, the horrific war crime really of the century. So, the media is a huge problem. I think it's really important for us, not only to encourage people to be watching good media, real people's media, but also for us to help have these conversations, and to be talking about it. And for me, the themes that are most powerful and the easiest way to break through is to talk about how the war is hurting you, the person that you're talking to, how the war is hurting you, how the war is really what's driving inflation, whether it's the disrupted supply chain or the inflation. The war is hurting you economically and is also putting every one of us at risk for nuclear Armageddon. And, the doomsday clock, it's closer to midnight than it has ever been in all, 50, 60 years, whatever, that it's been around. It's closer than ever. And the more details you learn about this, the more absolutely, chilling it is. Daniel Ellsberg, you may know, he kind of gained fame around exposing the lies and the deception in the Vietnam War. And his whistleblowing was very much a part of how we stopped the war. It really helped to have the proof, and then it really helped to have the success of the Vietnamese, who really showed in the I forget what it was called, but there was a big resurgence of the Viet Cong, who showed that the war was not going away, and that they were as strong as ever. And that really triggered a flip in public opinion. And at that point, suddenly it was really easy to just shut it down. But it took years to get there. And that was a much easier case to make because I think because of the draft. And as you point out, because of the media coverage was much better. Daniel Ellsberg was a part of that media effort. And he, he's known for blowing the whistle on the war in Vietnam, but his real, commitment was to blow the whistle on nuclear weapons. And his most recent book, was The Confessions of a Nuclear War Planner. And it's absolutely chilling to see what was going on even then. And it's far worse now. And the danger is much greater now. And I think, this is something that we're only beginning to talk about in detail. And, I think it's really important for us to help educate each other. I personally, the first organization I was ever involved with, this was like way back when in my student days, was actually Physicians for Social Responsibility. And that organization is all about educating people about nuclear weapons. After a while, I realized you can't just educate people. Education will only get you so far. You also have to, follow the, the resistance mode as well. It takes both. But for a long time, I was very kind of dedicated to studying what is the nuclear threat about and how do we convey this to people. And, here it is again. And it's back and bigger than ever. And I think there's a huge role right now for what Physicians for Social Responsibility is doing, and other groups, the ban, the nuclear ban organization too, which is all about not only educating people, but really pushing the nuclear weapons ban. And you may know that the US has dismantled most nuclear treaties. The key treaties are gone. We've sort of been laying the groundwork here. This is why we can put missiles on Russia's border that Russia's freaked out about. We haven't put nuclear missiles on Russia's border, but we have put missiles that can be swapped out very quickly. We've put nuclear compatible missiles on their border. Those missiles are supposedly defense. They are anti-missiles, supposedly. They're like the missiles that, oh, don't worry, this is just to put up a shield. So that used to be illegal. The ABM treaty, the anti-ballistic missile treaty, it stopped anti-missiles from being put in, these nuclear shield missiles. That now is used. That treaty was destroyed by the US so that we could make more money, basically, so that the weapons industry could make more money peddling anti-missiles. So we're putting in anti-missiles, selling them as though they are going to be a solution, which they're not. I mean, even if they weren't swapped out, they don't stop missiles. They're not reliable. They don't work very well. But in addition, the huge danger is that they can be swapped out very easily. They can be installed as a missile defense, and then suddenly, whoop, it's no longer missile defense. It's actually missile offense, and it now contains a nuclear warhead. These are nuclear compatible missiles, which are now sitting on Russia's border. The reason that the US can now get away with that is because we dismantled that treaty. The ABM treaty, the anti-ballistic missile treaty, would have stopped it. George Bush tore that treaty apart back in 2002. So that's why we can get away with putting missiles on Russia's border, which Russia is freaked out about. In the same way we freaked out about it back during the Cuban Missile Crisis, when Russia was putting missiles at Cuba's request, because Cuba had just been invaded by the US in the Bay of Pigs. So Cuba requested Russia's defense with nuclear missiles. We freaked out, and we had basically a nuclear war that we were ready to launch. We were in launch mode for a nuclear war. So Russia attacking Ukraine in order to get rid of those missiles is kind of like us way back in the 1960s when we were ready. I think we actually had the planes in the air ready to drop the bombs. We were ready to go to nuclear war, except the difference was that back then we had leadership that wasn't brain dead. And Khrushchev and Kennedy said, holy shit, we better sit down and talk about this. We cannot have a nuclear war. So they did. They began to negotiate. And these were those famous, whatever it was, 19 days, something like that, where the clock was ticking down to midnight. And they basically, they agreed that Russia would take its missiles out of Cuba and the US would take its missiles out of Turkey. And the US wanted that secret. They didn't want it known that we had put missiles in Turkey, and that's what, in part what Russia was responding to. So Russia agreed to let the US save face, and and they kept quiet about taking their missiles out. But, we've been here before, and Russia's, just hysteria about missiles on its border is completely understandable. We were in the same place exactly. And the missiles that we have placed there, we did so because we destroyed the nuclear treaties.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting too. Journalist Seymour Hersh, he wrote an article recently revealing that it was actually the U.S. that blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. And he's received heavy criticism, as you can imagine, from mainstream media and from the White House press as well. But I want to remind people who Seymour Hersh is, because people tend to forget this, that he was actually the journalist that gained popularity after he published the story about the My Lai massacre, which was about there were U.S. troops in Vietnam and they were killing unarmed Vietnamese people. He broke that story. And back then, it seems like great renowned journalists, congratulations, so proud of you. But now it's like mainstream media and other journalists are smearing him because of the information he's revealing about the United States government this time around. But it seems like they didn't have that resentment towards him when he revealed that information. I mean, I wasn't alive back then, but that's what it seems like. I think some people don't understand this isn't someone who just became a journalist yesterday. He's won numerous awards and he's done great work. And the White House still really isn't addressing that article the way that they should. Other politicians have been approached and confronted about it, like Hakeem Jeffries. They don't want to talk about it. The only statement that I saw is they said it's utterly false and complete fiction, but they do not want to talk about this, Jill. And it is very revealing.
It sure is. And, a case in point is that the UN Security Council just had a proposal. It was proposed by Russia that the UN investigate Nord Stream, because this is an international crime. This is international terrorism. And for the UN and everybody else to just look the other way says, okay, go ahead, anybody, blow up any underwater infrastructure. And those are like transcontinental cables. It's a lot of the internet. It's wind power. They're kind of like saying, hey, it's just a thumbs up to any kind of sabotage of infrastructure, and this was like billions and billions worth of infrastructure. And they're not even trying to get to the bottom of it. So this proposal from Russia was met with, the vote is really revealing, because it was Russia, China, and Brazil that supported it. Everybody else abstained. What does that tell you about U.S. strong arming? They don't come out against it. Who in their right mind would be against it? But they were pressured, presumably, you can be pretty sure they're all pressured not to vote for it. And why, their reason for this, their public reason was that, oh, don't worry, because Denmark, I think Norway, maybe Germany, there are 3 countries that are already investigating it. Well, actually, their investigations are secret, and they won't share the results of their investigation. So at every turn, this is just an orchestrated scam to protect the perpetrator. Who would oppose an investigation of this most horrific act of terrorism that has resulted in energy shortage all over the world and escalating energy prices and therefore food prices. This has been an absolute disaster, especially for the economy of Germany, which is now losing a lot of its businesses because it doesn't have energy to support them. This is a catastrophe for the economy, especially of Germany, but all of the EU. And who would not want to know the answer to that? The only person who wouldn't want to know the answer is the culprit who did it. And we are doing everything we can to prevent the investigation from taking place. It's really such a blatant, self-incrimination going on.
Yes, it is. Have you noticed any of the anti-Russia sentiment? I'm having flashbacks of a post 9/11 when there was an anti-Islamic sentiment in this country after that. Now it seems like if you even people who work for RT per se, journalists who are traveling to Russia to cover the story, people who are talking about the narrative a little bit differently, people who are Russian, like Americans, it seems like this is happening all over again, where there's this anti Russia sentiment. And this is one of the problems with war as well. It gives the impression that, especially when the US government is involved, it gives the impression that the US government or NATO is in the right and the opposing country is the enemy. And regardless of the war, the US government tends to make it appear to be that the US government is actually the hero. We're on the good side, and the opposing country is to blame or is the enemy. And what tends to happen from that is that people who are from that country can be treated unfairly in this country or smeared. I mean, I'm seeing them call journalists Putin puppets who don't support the war at all. Medea Benjamin calling for, peace in Ukraine. They're smearing people who are calling for peace. They're calling them Putin puppets. I mean, people have really lost it. They really have. But it's scary because for me, I remember anti-Russia sentiment going all the way back to when I was a kid. It was always Russia bad, Russia's cold and angry. And you might know this here, but there's a facility here called the Maparium for people who are not aware. If you go to the Maparium, it's a giant globe, right, of the world. You walk into the globe and there's this voice that speaks to you and talks about different countries. When it gets to Russia, all of a sudden the music turns very cold and it goes, I'm like, what happened there? It's so negative when compared to how they talk about the other countries.
Yeah, it's so sad, and Russian artists are being canceled, and conductors, are having they're being fired and their concerts are being canceled in this country. Yeah, I mean, it's just McCarthyism all over. The media is certainly driving this. There's this public delusion that there's a good guy in a white hat and there's a bad guy in a black hat, and this is kind of how our corporate media works. And, it's really remarkable. I try to listen. My husband likes to watch PBS NewsHour, which makes me want to scream all the time. But I'm always listening to see, do they know what they're talking about? And the talking heads that they bring on, are they persuasive? And I have to say, they generally don't know what they're talking about, or they are kind of suspiciously funded in a way that, no one in their right mind would give them credence. And so you have the feeling that we just have this media apparatus which is doing its job. In my mind, there is a press doing the real work of journalism. There's a press, and then there's an oppress that's really oppressing people with their information warfare and their sense of loyalty and their career advancement aims, which is, again, what is being taught now a lot in journalism school, that you're supposed to, advance up the ladder. And I can't say all journalism schools are doing that. I don't, it's not a field I know very well, but this is certainly what I hear. And you see this in so many people who come out of journalism school that, I don't know, maybe because they have a debt to repay, they're looking for the good jobs so they can pay their student debt, and just abandon the principles of journalism, which is supposed to be about, what's the phrase? Comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. They've got it backwards. It's about comforting the comfortable and afflicting the afflicted. That's what they do in all realms, whether it's foreign policy or, or the economy or the climate. They're all about, playing the game. It's just this very primitive notion of it's like a football team, it's like a sports event, and you're just like loyal to your tribe. And so many of them, so many journalists, professional journalists now, are coming from, solid upper classes and are coming from an economic elite. So they don't see it, they don't see the story to start with. And it becomes this very self-reinforcing crisis. And, if you look at public polls again about what do people think about the media, and how do people, are people confident? Do they have trust in media? And absolutely they don't. It's down near single digits, maybe in the 10s or 20, at most. People are not trusting media, and they feel like they've been abandoned, and our kind of public sentiment about the war is just a reflection of this very superficial and self-serving coverage by the elitist media.
I agree.
Go RBN, and people need to be listening to a real discussion, what we get from Aaron Mate or Glenn Greenwald, Gray Zone, just there's great alternative stuff out there, and you don't have to agree with it all. But, you ought to start trying to mix it up and actually trying to understand what's going on, and just don't take their word for it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I have two more questions for you, Jill. You tweeted this. This is actually connected to another story I'm going to discuss tonight as well. But for people who are not aware, the war in Yemen is ending. So this is huge news for those of you that did not know. One of the things I'm going to point this out twice tonight, but if you go on Twitter right now and you like this tweet, you exit Twitter and you come back in, Twitter is removing the likes from this tweet. They're doing this thing with Substack. I'll get into that story later on tonight. They're trying to not have Substack links in anymore. But what people need to understand, even though this war in Yemen is ending, is that the people in that country are devastated. I've seen so many videos from independent journalists that have actually gone over there to Yemen. That country is destroyed. People are living in rubble, not to mention the environmental pollution that they're having to deal with. The air is toxic. Mm-hmm. So even though the war is ending, we're looking at people that live in that country to have health problems for the next coming years because of the pollution that they're going to be taking in.
Mm. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, just the numbers of people that are at risk right now from starvation, and the malnutrition in just like a whole generation of children is just staggering. And the cost of rebuilding Yemen is just unbelievable. And you remind me of a question, when you're talking about the likes are being removed from that tweet. It would be so great if Matt Taibbi would expand his probe. In other words, he's been looking at how the liberal democratic establishment is censoring Republicans. I wish he would also look at how the liberal Democratic establishment is censoring actual progressives. Now that Matt Taibbi has left the Democratic Party, it would be very nice if he helped shine some light on political alternatives and how those alternatives are being systematically suppressed. And it's not just partisan alternatives, but, you know, the peace advocates, you know, and the real climate activists, how we also are being censored, canceled, and destroyed on social media. We've been destroyed on legacy media for decades, you know, that's nothing new. But there was a time when, I mean, I remember when it actually happened, we used to have a much bigger following and circulation of our social media, you know, our tweets and our Facebook posts. And then all of a sudden, this was, I think, in 2017, if I'm not mistaken, we lost access on Twitter for like 24 hours. And when we came back on, suddenly our reach was down by like 75%. You know, suddenly it came crashing down. So it was as if suddenly they weren't going to let us be heard anymore. And I would really like to know, are we being shadow, what's the word, you know, shadow censored, whatever. Yeah, are we being shadow? And it'd be nice to know that for our journalists, you know, for our activists. I wish Matt Taibbi would expand his queries a little bit to see what else is going on.
Yeah, there were a couple of suggestions I gave him. One was Tara Reid. I think she is significantly suppressed. The other one was, I think it was Yemen. Yeah, Yemen was one of them. So was Syria. He did look up Syria, so he did talk about that. There were a couple ones, suggestions that I did give him in reference to that. Although based on the information that came from him today on Twitter, I don't know if Matt is going to be continuing this. There's some crazy things happening over at Twitter, Jill. The Substack thing is a big one. A lot of journalists rely on Substack. It's the only way they can get their voice out there. So for Elon Musk to make this decision, I know that's something that Matt tweeted about. I'll talk about that later as well. But I mean, it's just, I don't even know if the Twitter files are going to continue because of other things that have happened recently, especially with the interview that he had with Mehdi Hasan. I don't know what Elon's thinking, or well, no, I think he's trying to make money. I really do. I think he's trying to make money. But this idea that Elon was going to be pro free speech, you know, we're seeing that's not necessarily the case.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. And, you know, I think it's never been, what shall we say, probable that Elon was going to be a free speech guru, but it seemed like he was at least willing to allow some things to be done. And while Matt has has an option to dig around in there and see what's going on, it certainly is, it's certainly helpful. I don't know what kind of compromises he has to make, or if it's just that he's being attacked as being a sellout for dealing with, I don't know how he is, how are the Twitter files enhancing Elon Musk's fortune, his investment, or his status? I don't know that it's doing that, but it certainly is, shining some daylight on what is actually going on in social media. And I think that's really important. And I don't see a downside to his continuing to do that while he's still able, but maybe there's much more going on than I'm aware of.
Yeah, there's he's being heavily attacked right now after that interview he had with Mehdi Hasan, which when he announced that was going to happen, I was like, oh no, that's a trap.
Yeah,
Definitely a trap. All right, Jill, I have one more question for you. You probably have heard this already, but Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has announced that he is running for president. Both of us are in Massachusetts. We know the Kennedys are very beloved. He's a little bit different, kind of like black sheep of the family. So not as many people like him. Do you feel he's making the right decision? Now, he is one of those people that is anti-authoritarian. He's very vocal about these government agencies. He's been very vocal about the mandates and the lockdowns and all of those things, but he's running through the Democratic Party. And that was the part that really confused me, because I'm like, you realize you're running in a party that's doing all those things, right?
Yeah. I mean, to me, that decision really limits what he can accomplish, because he's, and there's some things that I greatly value about his work, and there's some things I don't agree with. But that said, I think dialogue and debate is a good thing. And he can't do very much inside the Democratic Party because they have the ability to just totally shut him down. So it's not going anywhere. And it does make me question, what is his strategy, that he's still a part of the Democratic Party and sees himself as a Democrat. That just makes me not have a lot of confidence in his strategy or his politics. Is this just an exercise? Maybe it is. Maybe it is. And maybe but it's so misguided, because he's going to take a huge amount of abuse, and he's really not going to be able to get much in return by way of having a dialogue or a debate. It's just not going to happen. It's going to be totally shut down. So I feel badly for him. And I think he's going to be attacked because he is a Kennedy. He's going to be attacked with just incredible fervor and brutality. So I think he's likely to get very beat up. He's already been very, very beat up, but I think it's going to get a whole lot worse. And I worry for him.
Yeah. For people who don't live here and don't fully know, the Kennedys are a big deal here. Very, very big deal. There's a lot of them. Some of them that you have not heard about.
When I ran for governor for the first time in Massachusetts in the 2002 election, all the living Kennedys came out to say a vote for Stein is a vote for Romney. And, that was kind of like my close experience. That's as close as I ever got to the Kennedys, was they're coming out to say, if you're not a Democrat, then you're a Republican and you're helping the Republicans. And I was not impressed with their political insight.
I hear you. Well, Jill, thank you so much for coming on.
Great talking with you as always, Sabby. It's a real honor, privilege, and I look forward to the next time.
Thank you
for all you're doing. Take care.
All right, guys, I hope you learned something tonight. I have two stories that I'm going to cover as well. Dr. Jill Stein is always fire. Like just always fire. She says it like she means it. She says it right from the heart. All right. So what else are we going to discuss tonight? I want to go ahead and get into these two stories here. I see the comments coming. You guys asking like, what the heck is going on with Twitter? I'm going to get into all of that because today was rather interesting. So tonight I am going to discuss Mehdi Hasan presses Matt Taibbi. We're going to get into that. Jesus, you feel so bad for Matt watching that interview. Like, Mehdi's a clown. I'm sorry. It just is what it is. Jill Stein was obviously just here. And we're also going to talk about Elon blocks Substack. That is huge, especially for people who are independent journalists and heavily rely on Substack for an income, right? Like, all of these journalists post their articles, their Substack articles on Twitter, from what I've seen. Quick shout out to everyone who's a Sabby patron. We'll get into comments and then we'll get started with this Matt Taibbi story, because it is not looking good on Twitter. I got to tell you that much. Thank you so much, Sabby patrons. If you're interested in being a patron, I have 5 categories: members, Sabbies, Sabsters, Sabinators, and of course, the ultimate. All of their names are listed here. Their names are also scrolling across the bottom of the screen there on the ticker. Thank you guys so much for your support. Thank you. All right, let me go to some of the chats here. Gala, love you, Sabby. One of the best shows on YouTube. Oh, thank you. That is very sweet. You are very kind there. Thank you for the super chat. Roger, chill with Jill. Jill helps Sab with Massachusetts CBI, M for All, and Public Bank. Thank you for that, Roger. I feel shorter tonight. I don't know. I feel like I have to do like this. Like I feel shorter for some reason. Maybe I moved the camera up too high. Is that what it is? Is the camera up too high? I don't know. Shoot. We'll figure that out later. I don't know what I did. I think I moved the camera and somehow I feel a lot shorter than I actually am. A to Z me, the level of hate that Taibbi is getting on Twitter from the blue MAGA crowd is crazy. Yes, it is. Mary says that moment Jill Stein was talking about was known as the 13 days. You can see an awesome telling over on the YouTube channel History Buffs page. That's good to know, Mary. Thank you for the super chat, GM. Jill Stein, I admire you so much. I voted for you. I kept saying I'm with her. And by her, I meant Jill Stein. And to Toonsy, I'm proud to say that I voted for Jill Stein. Keeping it real. Lawrence says it should be clear why the DNC locked up Dr. Jill to keep her out of the debates. She was an amazing grasp on all issues. Thank you so much for that. Oh dear, this story with Matt Taibbi and Mehdi Hasan. When Matt Taibbi announced on Twitter that he was doing this interview, the first thing I said is, this is a trap. It's like the guy from Star Wars. It's a trap. That's exactly what I said. What is it, Eric? Tilted down a little. Yeah, because I think I moved the camera for RT. I did move it for RT. That's part of the problem. Because with them, you have to move it up. Anyway, that RT vid will post tomorrow. But I felt really bad for Matt. And I mean, it is what it is at this point. I'm not messing with this camera anymore. I'm not touching it anymore. It is what it is at this point. The interview has already happened, but I will say that Mehdi Hasan is a clown. Let's all remember Mehdi Hasan wrote for The Intercept too. He used to work with them as well. So what he's going to try to do is he's going to try to get Matt Taibbi here on errors in reference to the Twitter files. This interview was not in good faith. He did not have good intentions going into this interview. You got to understand that. He went into this interview solely to discredit Matt Taibbi, to attack Matt Taibbi, and to pretend or defend and protect the Democratic Party. That is what this is about. Most of the files that have been revealed criticize the Democratic Party and their involvement in censoring people on Twitter. So here comes the Democratic Party. They send in Mehdi Hasan to try to discredit Matt Taibbi. And by the way, if you're not on Twitter, if you don't believe me, just go on Twitter right now and look how many people are attacking him after this interview. Let's go ahead and get started with the first clip. Nearly 2 weeks ago, Matt Taibbi challenged me on Twitter to invite him on my show to discuss Elon Musk working with the Indian government to censor speech online. Today, he came on my show and refused to talk about it or criticize Musk. So there's a couple clips here that I want to play. Let's get started with this one.
Would you like to criticize Musk now?
No, I don't particularly want to. Look, I didn't criticize him really before, and I think that what the Twitter files are is a step in the right direction.
But it's the same Twitter that he's running right now.
I disagree with him. If you want to ask, I think.
Understood, Matt. Well, I'll ask you a specific one.
You asked me this. No.
It's not in bad faith, Matt. Sorry. You say that Twitter... Hold on. Let me finish my question. You're saying that he's good for Twitter and good for speech. I'm saying he's using Twitter to help one of the most right-wing governments in the world censor speech. I will criticize that. Will you?
I have to look at the story first. I'm not looking at it now.
Hold on. I posted the story 2 weeks ago. You tweeted at me,
I don't watch the Mehdi Hasan show.
You do, actually you do, because you tweeted at me saying, invite me on the show and I'll tell you my views. Here you are.
Well, just because he tweeted out, invite me on the show and I'll tell you my views, doesn't mean he actually watches you, Mehdi. I mean, you mentioned his name in this tweet. That doesn't mean he actually sits down and watches your show. I'm talking about Mehdi's show right now, and I don't watch him. So there you go.
What is your view? There it is. There it is. Look. Yeah, and you said, look, we'll read your words. Why don't you invite me on your show to talk about it, since you're so absolutely sure of what I'll say? You're right, I'm not sure. What is your view on Musk working with Modi to censor speech?
That's what you about the particulars about it. But listen, this came up the first time. I think it was Twitter Files number 6, when you said after this was a big one that we had done about the relationship between Twitter, the FBI, and the DHS. And as that story came out, you were giving me a hard time about tweeting through it. I think was the quote. Essentially, you said, you don't. So essentially, you're arguing that this information was not in the public interest, that I somehow shouldn't have done this story that I'd worked hard on because Elon Musk tweeted something. You don't think that story?
No, I said he banned journalists. I think hold on, Matt. If you're doing a story about free speech on Twitter and the head of Twitter bans journalists, yeah, I think most people. By the way, Barry Weiss, your partner in crime on that, your colleague, your reporter. Sorry for that euphemism. Your reporting colleague. She actually did call him out. So it's weird that Barry Weiss had more integrity on that. Some might argue, your critics might say, than you did.
So you see what Mehdi Hasan is doing right here? He's trying to compare Matt Taibbi to another person who was a part of the Twitter Files release, which is Barry Weiss. This is how they pit people against each other, right? People who should be on the same side. That's what he's doing. Barry Weiss called out Elon Musk. Why aren't you calling out Elon Musk? First of all, the point that Mehdi mentioned, where he talked about Elon Musk's role in reference to the Indian government, Matt's response was, I have to look into that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that response. Obviously, it's hard to comment on something if you don't know all the specifics around it and you don't know all the details. You don't know what happened before, you don't know what happened after. So that is actually the right thing to say. But you have to understand, this interview was a trap. This interview was done to discredit and to smear Matt Taibbi. And I'm going to tell you something that I think about Elon Musk after all this, too, because I have some things to say about Elon Musk. But here's another clip here, because what he's trying to do is he's trying to catch him in a lie. If I can catch Matt Taibbi in a lie, then I can discredit him. And then the rest of the world will just think, oh, the Twitter files are just a sham. It's not even real. Then I can destroy his credibility as a journalist. That is the goal. To discredit. Listen to this clip.
Would you like to criticize Musk now?
No, I don't particularly want to. Look, I didn't criticize him really before, and I think that what the Twitter files are is a step in the right direction.
But it's the same Twitter that he's running right now.
I disagree with him. If you want to ask, I think.
Understood, Matt. Well, I'll ask you a specific one.
You ask you a specific. No.
It's not in bad faith, Matt. Sorry. You say that Twitter is.
Oh, sorry. That's a repeat. Let me go to the next one. Okay, here we go. Sorry, I went to the wrong one. Here we go. It's a thread, so bear with me.
Would you like to criticize Musk now?
No, I don't particularly want to.
Sorry about that, guys. For whatever reason, it's playing the same thing unless I went to the wrong one, but I don't think I went to the wrong one. Oh, I'll just go here. Here we go. Sorry, guys.
The world's most powerful investment bank is a great vampire squid wrapped around the face.
We're going to speed up here. There we
It's
go.
much worse than it is when you discover that actually it was simply a violation of Twitter's terms of service, that these were nude, non-consensual images for Hunter Biden. Why not mention that? Did you not know? In which case, that's kind of incompetent. Or did you know and you were just hiding it from people?
Incompetent?
I mean, if you didn't know.
Yeah, this is the part I wanted. Let me go back just a little bit so you can get the beginning part of that. Because he's even calling them names now, incompetent. So he's speaking about in reference to this tweet here. By 2020, requests from connected actors to delete tweets were routine. One executive would write to another, more to review from the Biden team. The reply would come back, handled. So here we go.
Now, that sounds bad, but aside from the fact that the Biden team was not the government at the time, it turns out that at least 3, maybe 4 of those 5 tweet URLs that you linked to, that they link back to non-consensual nude images of Hunter Biden. Why was it wrong, Matt, for the Biden campaign, not the government at the time, to ask Twitter to enforce its own terms of service against people basically posting revenge porn? Do you understand why people question your credibility on this whole project when you omit such crucial context right from the get-go?
Pay attention to the vocabulary. What did I tell you? Credibility. That's the whole goal of this interview, to get people to question his credibility as a journalist. So whatever he writes after this, people won't take it seriously.
First of all, the reason that's important is because the ordinary person can't just call up Twitter and have something taken off Twitter. If you put something nasty about me on Twitter, I can't just call up Twitter and talk to the government liaison, whose name I won't mention on the air, and say, hey, can you take care of this? And have them take care of that. That doesn't work for the ordinary person. The Biden campaign could do it. Donald Trump could do it. But I can't do it. Can you do it? I don't think so.
You didn't answer my question. Why didn't you tell us what were in the URLs? Because it sounds much worse than it is when you discover that actually it was simply a violation of Twitter's terms of service, that these were nude, non-consensual images for Hunter Biden. Why not mention that? Did you not know? In which case, that's kind of incompetent. Or did you know and you were just hiding it from people?
So he calls him incompetent. He's an ass. I told you Mehdi is a clown. He calls him incompetent. And he's ignoring what Matt said here, which I think is very important. The fact that you have a group of people that have that type of power because of who they are, that they can actually make those requests of a social media platform, that should concern everyone. Mehdi doesn't want to respond to that, though. The Biden campaign, whether they were in office or not, I told you, this is all about him defending and protecting the Democratic Party at all costs. Whether they were in office or not, the fact that they went to such lengths to tell Twitter what to remove, who to censor, who to keep, that is an overreach of power. And that should concern you, whether you like Matt or Mehdi or not. That should be an issue. And he doesn't want to answer that. Look at the smug look on Mehdi Hasan's face. That's why I told you this interview was not done in good faith.
Competent?
I mean, if you didn't know, if you put up
MSNBC. My
Did
God,
you know?
you got 6 consecutive years of just screw ups on the Russia story.
Well, that was predictable.
Ding, ding, ding. So he said, you are on MSNBC and you guys have had multiple screw ups.
You're going to do predictable. Can you answer the question? Did you know what was in the URLs when you posted them? It's a simple question.
In the URLs.
Why didn't you tell us?
I don't need to.
Because it's relevant. You don't think it's relevant that it's a violation of Twitter's terms of service to have nude pictures of Hunter Biden up?
Look, every time.
Let's be very clear here for a second. It's not just about those pictures on the laptop. There's other things on that laptop. Why is Mehdi Hasan going through such lengths to protect Hunter Biden here? You see the problem?
Time they make a request to Twitter, they're doing what you're arguing. They're making the argument that, oh, we're not actually asking. This isn't censoring. This is just the government pointing out that
that's what the emails show that you posted. They don't demand anything, do they? They say, can you check if this is in line with your terms of service? And those URLs weren't. So I'm wondering why you wouldn't mention that.
First of all, the government, I can't even report that yet. All right. When they're doing this,
This is the other thing. There's certain things that he just can't say. Obviously, right? Notice how he said right there, he was like, oh, I can't report that yet. That's another part of the problem. And I have a word for Elon Musk here because I'm sorry, this has been driving me crazy. And I've been wanting to say this for quite a while. For Elon Musk to hire these journalists to do the Twitter files, and then when shit hits the fan and they are smeared and their journalism is attacked, which is what is happening to Matt Taibbi, Elon Musk is just sitting in the back room, and it's almost like he left them out to dry. Where is Elon Musk in reference to this? I know that, Eric. But they were still hired to do a job. He was saying they weren't paid, but they were still hired to do a job. The thing is this, he has not come forward to even try to speak. I don't see Elon Musk doing these interviews. I didn't see Elon Musk testify in front of Congress. Isn't this his platform? Isn't Twitter his platform? Doesn't he own the damn company? Let's be real here. This is a problem. You chose these journalists to do this job. And the moment they were attacked and smeared, and now they're being called not credible journalists, you are silent. And I'm going to show you something else Elon Musk did too today. This is a problem. This is a problem. Why aren't these people interviewing Elon Musk? Why isn't Elon Musk on Mehdi Hasan's show? More people need to ask this question. Because if you hired them to do this job, you need to come forward and you should be backing them and supporting them right now. You should be contacting any news network that you can to go onto that network and defend those damn journalists that you asked to do this damn assignment. That's my problem with Elon Musk. That's my problem right now. Because it's like they're getting all the hits. They're taking all the blows. And Elon Musk just sitting on the sidelines. I've been thinking about this for the past couple of days, and I'm like, I really feel like he needs to say something here. He needs to come forward and do something. Why is Matt out there fighting by himself for himself? Where's everybody else? Let's go on.
It's self-evident what they're doing, and I don't have to make claims about what it is. I can just show you what they're doing. Everybody knows.
You didn't, Matt. That's the problem. You didn't show the world that the Biden campaign asked for nude images. You didn't. Other people pointed out what those URLs were. You never did.
Yeah, I see this. He didn't hire them. He gave them access. He chose them, though. He picked them. He chose them, and he chose certain people. These are the people that he chose to do it. That's my point. Let me go on.
And that's the problem, Matt. There's a lot of omission.
Thousands of things that I wrote. Am I going to describe every single thing that I published?
That was the first Twitter file and the most viral tweet. Noam Chomsky, who you know and I know and we like,
which is about a subject you guys screwed up.
Said one of the, and we'll come back to that, has said one of the greatest forms of censorship in the media is censorship by omission. You've heard that quote. There's a lot of omission in the Twitter files. A lot you and your colleagues don't tell us. You mentioned in passing, for example, in your very first thread that the Trump White House made requests of Twitter too, i.e. the actual government, not the Biden campaign. But you didn't tell us what those Trump requests were. It took an actual Twitter whistleblower. Well, it took an actual Twitter whistleblower in front of Congress to reveal that Trump once demanded Twitter take down a mean tweet about him from the model Chrissy Teigen. Yet you didn't mention that in any of your Twitter files posts.
Because I didn't have that story. I don't have
Doesn't that tell you something? That you had the Biden story and not the Trump story, that Elon Musk was giving you one side of the story?
No, see, the framing that Mehdi is using here is incredibly dangerous. You see what he's doing? He's trying to put words in Matt's mouth. Elon Musk, Matt has never said Elon gave him any stories. This is important. You got to push back on this. I've seen multiple interviews. I interviewed him about this as well. I've never heard Matt Taibbi say Elon Musk gave him stories. So Mehdi is making that statement, which is absolutely false. Matt has explained multiple times how the process worked with the Twitter files. He explained there were these search engines you go through, and he said, based on the number of emails or emails that will come up with that information. So if something did not come up, he searched for it and there were no emails that came up. That's why the information hasn't been presented. But Mehdi is trying to basically get Matt Taibbi admit that Elon Musk was actually giving these journalists certain stories, that he was cherry picking stories that would make the Democratic Party not look favorable. And that's what Mehdi is trying to do. Framing is very important during interviews. I've done a lot of them. Framing is incredibly important. And he framed that in that way to convince the American people that Elon Musk cherry-picked those stories and gave those stories to those journalists. Let's go on.
No, you don't understand. First of all, that first batch of files resulted in the firing of Twitter's general counsel. We were looking at something on a very short time frame, but we didn't have it. I went out of my way to report that fact. I was the first person who reported that Donald Trump made requests and had them honored on Twitter.
But you outlined which ones the Biden team did without giving full context, but you didn't outline which ones. Well, maybe you should ask yourself why it is you didn't have it. Let me ask you this. A lot of
Come on, Matt. Sweep the leg. Sweep the leg, Matt. Like, you got to go hard at Mehdi. You got to go hard. Imagine the way that you've seen Jimmy Dore go nuclear. You got to go nuclear at this guy. You really do. Because let's be real here. What's more important? The information on Hunter Biden's laptop or Donald Trump asking Christy Teigen or asking them to take a tweet down that Christy Teigen wrote about him? What's more important? What's on that laptop is way more important. I don't care about these celebrities, period. I don't care about a Christy Teigen. Who cares? Who gives a fuck? Who is this woman? The only thing I know about this woman is she married to John Legend. That's it. That's all I know about this woman. So the framing, what I would have wanted Matt to say here is, I'm sorry, but which is more important? Corruption of Joe Biden's son on a laptop or Christy Teigen? Sweep the leg. You got to sweep the leg, Matt.
Your own Twitter files reporting shows top Twitter employees
they don't have it either, by the way. The whistleblower in Congress didn't have it either.
I know, but she did say under oath that this actually happened, so you can accuse her of what you want later.
I don't have to accuse them.
So it sounds like you are. Out of interest, Matt, the emails you show really difficult content moderation decisions. They don't show Twitter rolling over. They show people actually having really interesting discussions, unlike now where Elon Musk just dictates that NPR is state affiliated and it happens overnight. They also show Twitter resisting requests to things that members of Congress have asked them to take down, members of the FBI. So I wonder, how do you call this a censorship industrial complex when Twitter, according to your own files, is saying no a lot of the time? I mean, if it was censorship, they'd have just rolled over every time Agent Chan of the FBI or Congressman Adam Schiff made a demand, but they didn't.
I published an explicit tweet which describes Twitter's internal ads policy. Where
notice how Mehdi Hasan, the screenshots that he's showing are the tweets from Matt and tweets from Michael, but none of those tweets are screenshots of the emails where they're actually asking Twitter to remove people. You guys notice that? He's not showing any of those screens. We went through all the Twitter files on this damn channel, okay? All the Twitter file releases on this channel. I saw all of those screenshots. So you guys saw that. You saw it on this show, which is not mainstream media. But here you have MSNBC. They didn't even show you what I showed you. That, again, this is Mehdi Hasan protecting the Democratic Party.
they say publicly, we are going to represent that we make these decisions at our sole discretion. Internally, we are going to act when the U.S. intelligence agency, the U.S. intelligence community, that's the quote, when the U.S. intelligence community determines that an account is linked to a foreign malign threat actor, So they're talking about their two-phase system in the document. Now,
but your words, Matt, you say, to their credit, they turned down requests. You say it yourself. Those are your words in the Twitter files.
Yeah, they did, but this is a story that has multiple layers to it. The government is constantly applying pressure to these companies. It starts with a baseline of them not wanting to be engaged at all.
Matt, tell him, this is what you say to him when he asked that question. What you say to him is, the problem is, Mehdi, the government shouldn't have been asking them to remove things in the first damn place. That's the problem. Mehdi wants you to focus. He wants the audience to focus on the fact that Twitter did turn down some of those requests, when what you should be focused on is the fact that they shouldn't have been making those requests in the first damn place. That's the problem. Let me add him, Matt. Let me add Mehdi. Let me add him. Violence and Sabby's Matt's boxing coach. Let me add him. Sweep the leg.
With the government, or have to have a very limited relationship. The door gets kicked open when in 2017, particularly in the fall of 2017, when the Senate Intelligence Committee starts leaning on Twitter to endorse their accusations that there had been a substantial number of bots linked to Russia's Internet Research Agency. And essentially it was made plain to Twitter that they would both be subject to lots of bad press and perhaps increased regulation if they didn't communicate with the Senate Intelligence Committee in the way that they wanted.
But communicating is not rolling over, Matt. All I'm saying is I don't see the evidence. If I saw evidence, they didn't. Adam Schiff says take down a tweet, and they don't, according to your own files.
That's not the point. That's not the issue. Adam Schiff had no business telling Twitter what they could and could not have on their own platform. Adam Schiff is a politician. He don't work at Twitter. So what Mehdi is trying to do, he's trying to distract the audience. He's trying to get them to focus on the fact that there were examples where Twitter actually said no to the requests that were made. And that's not what you should be focusing on. The fact that you had a politician tell Twitter executives what they should remove from their platform, that is a problem. That is overreach. Mehdi is trying to talk fast. He's trying to get Matt flustered to get Matt off his game. And that's why I said from day one, this interview was a trap.
What's Adam Schiff going to do? Is Adam Schiff the CIA? Is the CIA going to come to Twitter and say,
so do you have evidence? So do you have evidence that the CIA demanded a tweet got taken down and they did it immediately?
See how he cut him off and he resorted back to the original question, the original statement. See,
I haven't seen it. Well, we think it's the CIA, quote unquote other government agencies. We know that the CIA was present.
You think it's the CIA? You began the interview saying you don't make claims; it's just evidence. Okay, let's talk about your evidence, Matt. Because as I said, people
quote me directly if you're going to do this. Quote me directly.
What am I quoting? You just said this. We think it's the CIA. I said I haven't seen a single Twitter file where the CIA tells Yoel Roth to take it down.
We showed reports that came through the Foreign Interference Task Force. We know it came through the FBI. We know that's the destination by which it came, but the origin of the document we couldn't determine because, and there's lots of these. We have hundreds.
There are lots of these, and Twitter doesn't.
This is where, if it were me, I think I would have said, "You asked me a question, let me answer it."
Deny that they take stuff down, right? Twitter put out a report in
Caroline, and you're going to let me answer the question because you're accusing me of getting this wrong. So
he heard me.
These documents, I went out and I talked to every former intelligence person from every agency that I could to try to identify where these documents came from. And I ended up quoting, I think I quoted John Kiriakou and I think one other person as saying that looks about right. Because the people that I talked to thought that this was probably, a CIA document, that they thought that it looked like that. It could have been from some other agencies, but I did I put the document up and I said, this is what it looks like. This is what these people thought it was. I reported that other people talked about OGA. That's. And
I'm not, Matt, just to be clear, I'm not disputing that. I'm not disputing any of that. I'm saying there's no evidence that the government is ordering Twitter to take a bunch of stuff down, and Twitter's agreeing to everything. Twitter. Hold on. Let me finish.
No, there was evidence. Guys, am I losing it here? Do you not remember us going through the emails? Us showing the screenshots on this show? There was evidence. This makes me wonder, I should have created a playlist on this channel just called Twitter Files. So people can just go through that whole playlist to see those streams again. I don't get it. What's that, Kim? Nice work, Sabby. It's easy to get flustered and Matt was being attacked in real time. The emails were clear. Thank you. I thought so. It was really clear.
Let me finish. Twitter put out a report in 2021, as you know, which must shut down, a transparency report where they said the government asked us to take stuff down, and we took down 40% of what we were asked to take down. They've never denied that they take stuff down. Yeah, I think it's serious. I think if you were right, it would be 100%. The fact that it's not 100%, the majority of stuff they turned down, doesn't tell me there's a censorship complex. I don't understand how it. Do I think it's serious that they take down 40% of stuff? Maybe, but that's not nothing you.
No. There is no maybe. They shouldn't have asked them to take it down, period. I don't care if it was 40%, 15%, 10%, 5%. I don't care if it was 2%. They should have never had that type of overreach where they were telling Twitter what to remove from their own platform. This is what you got to stick them with. You got to come back with that. And you have to say that multiple times, like during this interview. I know in real time, it can be a little bit different. You don't always know what they're going to throw at you. I think, Matt's a really nice person. I think for me, I'm a nice person too, but, I think for me, if I were going into this, I would have come in on the defensive, ready to go. Because I don't trust MSNBC. I damn sure don't trust Mehdi Hasan. And I would expect the worst, I think this is the angriest I've seen Matt, like on streams or in interviews. But Dr. Nick says Matt is a lover, not a fighter. Yeah, I think, just even like looking at Hasan, like Mehdi's face, it does something to me, man, because I really do feel like you got to hit him with the punches. You got to hit him with the uppercut. You got to sweep that leg and then you finish him. Just like Mortal Kombat style.
Suggests, in fact, the agent from the FBI sent emails saying, hey, do you mind taking this? Do you mind looking at this and seeing if it's in line with your terms of service? That is not the police state that I think is being painted by Jim Jordan. By the way, you said about factual inaccuracies, Matt. Let's talk factual inaccuracies. Stanford, you talk a lot about the Election Integrity Project in the Twitter files, which Stanford and the University of Washington founded to monitor attacks on our elections. And you say some stuff about them that a lot of your critics say is not true, and that affects your credibility. You said the EIP was founded in response to the government dropping its proposal for a disinformation government. Well, there you are.
See, notice again, he's showing the tweet, but he's not showing the attached information that was included in the Twitter files threads that shows the screenshots of the emails that back this claim up. And that is on purpose.
Well, we're quoting you on screen. It wasn't. It was formed 2 years earlier. You suggest it was government funded, even though during the 2020 election that you're covering, it wasn't. You say they labeled 22 million tweets as misinformation in the run-up to the 2020 vote. They didn't. They flagged 3,000 election misinformation tweets for labeling, so you were only 21,997,000 off. And you also claim the EIP was, let me finish the question, you can come back in. You also claim the EIP was partnered with the government Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Agency, CISA, to censor Twitter, but you mix up CISA, CISA, a Homeland Security Agency, with the Center for Internet Security, the CIS, which is a non-profit. In fact, you added an A to CIS. I think people can see it there.
Okay, so there was an error. This is the thing that he really tried to stick with him. What's interesting, though, is who is Mehdi Hasan to talk about mistakes and errors? Mehdi Hasan used to work at The Intercept. When is he going to call out The Intercept for covering up the Hunter Biden laptop story? He's on MSNBC for a reason. When is he going to call out MSNBC for Russiagating people? But he wants to talk about credibility, and he wants to talk about mistakes and errors. Have they come back at MSNBC and tell people and apologize to people for Russiagating them for years?
In brackets to make that false claim. It's just error after error, Matt, on just this one topic.
Error. But the other ones aren't. The 22 million number came from their own report.
Yeah, it came from a report in March. Do you know what the 22 million number is, Matt? Can you tell me? Because we checked. 22 million is the number of tweets about election misinformation that they just mapped. How many tweets were they? The ones they actually flagged to Twitter before the election, 22 million came after the election. It wasn't in the run-up. They flagged 3,000. So you were off by 21,997,000. It's another error.
They've said a lot of things. I stand by my story.
You stand by what story? You stand by 22 million were flagged in the run-up to the election, even though that number came in March 2021, which was after the election.
No, this came in their report after the election.
Which was about some total of tweets that they counted on the election. What they flagged to Twitter was 2,980 tweets, I believe. So that's nowhere near 22 million. Come on, what? You got something wrong. You got CISA wrong. Why did you add A? Okay, Matt, why did you add A in square brackets? Do you understand why people worry about?
I actually thought that.
Honestly, I don't think people worried that much. I think you're the only one that's really worried about it, Mehdi. You were trying anything that you could to try to discredit him. I think that's what this is really about. But to sit here and pretend like journalists don't make mistakes or don't make errors, like, come on, no one is perfect. Mehdi is not.
And why didn't you fix it? I just checked the tweet before I came on air. It's been 3 weeks since it was flagged to you. Why not fix it? Do you not have editors at the racket?
I didn't realize that until now.
Okay, and what about the date? You got the date wrong when it was founded. You said it was founded in response to the disinformation board. That was last year.
Well, because Stamos is saying in the video that we were sort of created to fill the gaps.
No, that's not what you say in the tweet. That's not what you say in the tweet.
The SIO was created in 2018.
No. You say, this is what you say, that the EIP was created after the public uproar paused the disinformation board. That's wrong. You need to correct that as well, don't you?
After the...
That's what your words. You say, to quote you, after public uproar paused the Orwellian Disinformation Governance Board, Stanford created the EIP. That's wrong.
Well, that's what they say. You could check. You don't need sources, Matt. You could check the EIP website. It says it was created in 2020. Well, that's the date that I just said. And the Disinformation Board was 2022. Okay. All right. Well, then that is an error. Okay. So let's talk about Elon Musk.
You see what Mehdi was trying to do? I agree, Justin. What a disgrace this Mehdi Hasan is. Yeah, this is bad. This is ridiculous.
We talk about Twitter files. You have talked about why you don't want to reveal that he's your source, even though he's basically outed himself as his source. I get that you don't want to reveal your source as you're a journalist, but Barry Weiss has outed him. He's outed himself. What's interesting about Elon Musk is that we checked. You've tweeted over 30 times about Musk since he announced he was going to buy Twitter last April, and not a word of criticism about him in any of those 30-plus tweets. Musk is a billionaire who's been found to have violated labor laws multiple times, including in the past few days. He's attacked labor unions, reportedly fired employees on a whim.
What does this have to do with the information that was released from the Twitter files? This has nothing to do with that. We all know that Elon Musk has labor issues. I'd hope we all know that Elon Musk is not perfect. And I've had criticism of Elon Musk. These are things that we're aware of. This has nothing to do with the government telling Twitter who to keep and who to remove and the stories to remove from their platform. This has nothing to do with that.
Slammed the idea of a wealth tax, told his millions of followers to vote Republican last year, and in response to a right-wing coup against Bolivian leftist president Evo Morales, he tweeted, "We'll coup whoever we want." And yet you've been silent on all of that. How did you go, Matt, from being the scourge of Wall Street, the man who called Goldman Sachs the vampire squid, to being unwilling to say anything critical at all about this right-wing reactionary anti-union billionaire?
Hello? Am I still on?
Yes, you're still on. I'm just wondering how come you've never criticized Musk despite all that?
Hey, Ashura. Yes, it's live. There's no timestamp on this video. It must be on your end. It's not on my end.
Look, so I like Elon Musk. I met him. This is part of the calculation when you do one of these stories. Are they going to give you information that's going to make you look stupid? Do you think their motives are sincere about doing X or Y? And I didn't. I thought. I mean, I did. I thought his motives were sincere about the Twitter files, and I admired them. I think he did a tremendous public service in opening the files up. But that doesn't mean I have to agree with him about everything. And
Agreed, I agree with you. But you never disagree with him. You've gone silent. People would say that's access journalism.
No, I haven't done.
Who do you disagree with, Mehdi? How do you think you get the guests that you get on MSNBC? You do access journalism. This is hilarious to me. This is really hilarious to me, people. You're on MSNBC. You're going to tell me that the commentators on MSNBC don't do access journalism? The fuck is he talking about? Very strange.
I haven't reported anything that limits my ability to talk about Elon Musk.
So will you criticize him today for banning journalists, for working with Modi government to shut down speech, for being anti-union? You can go for it. I'll give you as much time as you like. Would you like to criticize Musk now?
No, I don't particularly want to. Look, I didn't criticize him really before. And I think that what the Twitter files are is a step in the right direction.
But it's the same Twitter that he's running right now.
I disagree with him. If you want to ask, I think.
Understood, Matt. Well, I'll ask you a specific one.
No.
It's not in bad faith, Matt. Sorry. You say that Twitter. Hold on. Let me finish my question.
Okay, and then that comes back full circle from the clip that we started with earlier. Now, I do want to show there have been some responses as well. Matt did respond here. He said, again, just had a very contentious interview with Mehdi Hasan, who made me aware of 3 errors in the Twitter files, which as a responsible journalist, unlike MSNBC, which has not corrected years of huge mistakes, I am now retracting/correcting. So that's what he says there in reference to the Stanford file that he was referring to as well. And Li Feng, now he was one of the journalists that worked on the Twitter files as well. He's also come in and he said, Mehdi, you obviously haven't read the reporting here. CISA is the DHS agency that partnered with EIP. Here's an email of a CISA employee discussing an EIP ticketed misinfo report to Twitter employees. Matt got it right. So this was the piece where I wanted to save this to the end. This is the piece where I wanted you guys to understand, again, He did not show the screenshot of any of these emails. And he did that on purpose. He was trying to trip up Matt. And Matt was actually, in the beginning, Matt was correct. He was confident with what he was saying. But I think that Matt let Mehdi make him doubt himself. And that's why I said there's a reason why they did not show the screenshots of the emails, because the information is right here. Twitter resubmitting with updated info. You see this? At cisa.dhs.gov. So Matt was actually correct about that. But sometimes what some of these commentators like Mehdi will do, especially if any of them have been lawyers, what they'll do is that they'll try to trip you up. And then you start, excuse me, sorry. They'll try to, my nose tickles. They'll try to trip you up so that you start doubting yourself. And that's what Mehdi Hasan did. Get my sneezies out the way. Okay, this one was really interesting. I like Heba's response. She said Mehdi Hasan weaponized his religion and status as an immigrant to shame the left for not falling behind Biden because Trump is worse, only to turn around and give Bush props, LOL, as if Bush didn't lead the way for many of Trump's discriminatory, Islamophobic, and hateful rhetoric. This was Heba said this in 2020. People were retweeting this after that Matt Taibbi interview. So it was really, that was really funny. It's like flashback. So yeah, they really, like right now on Twitter, people are really coming after Matt Taibbi. It's bad. It's bad. But there's something else that's also bad in reference to Twitter. And it was actually Indie Left made me aware of this. I was not aware of it at the time. Elon Musk has decided not to allow Substack links on Twitter. Now, Matt Taibbi also tweeted about this. Of all the things I learned earlier today, that Substack links were being blocked on this platform. And we're going to do a test. So I'll show you guys, okay? When I asked why, I was told it's a dispute over the new Substack Notes platform. Let's go here. Since sharing links to my articles is a primary reason I come to this platform, I was alarmed and asked what was going on. I was given the option of posting articles on Twitter instead. I'm obviously staying at Substack and will be moving to Substack Notes next week. So basically, this is another chance for Elon Musk to make more money off of Twitter. For those of you who are not on Twitter, he had announced that in order to have, if you have a blue check, in order to keep that blue check, you have to subscribe to Twitter Blue. So you have to pay a monthly fee. If you do not have a blue check, your tweets will be suppressed even more in the algorithm. So people are less likely to see them as they were before. So he's trying to get you to pay money to be a part of Twitter. No one else is asking you to do this. Facebook doesn't ask you to do it. TikTok doesn't ask you to do it, but he's asking people to do that. Some people have already switched over and paid for it. But this recent development here in reference to Substack, I want to explain to you why this is a big problem. Every journalist that I know that's on Substack, they share their Substack articles on Twitter. They can get a lot of traction that way. There's a lot of people on there. Now, I want to show you what happens. Now, we practiced this today. This is the tweet I was showing Jill Stein earlier. It was her tweet, right? Now, you would think maybe they're suppressing this tweet because it says China spoiling it for U.S. weapon sales. Nope. It is because she is sharing a Substack article. Watch what happens when I like this tweet. Notice there's no likes on this tweet. You see 18 quotes Watch this. Some actions on this tweet have been disabled by Twitter. See how my like just goes away? Let's try it again. Boop. Some actions on this tweet have been disabled by Twitter. That's why that tweet has no likes. A bunch of us, we were in a DM group. We practiced this earlier today. And I was like, yo, what the hell's happening to my likes? So you can't even like tweets that have the Substack article. This started today. That's Elon Musk. And this is a problem. I don't know what else they're going to take away in reference for your sharing abilities on Twitter. I don't know. But I want to tell you why. Another reason why I think this is a slap in the face. Let's pull Matt Taibbi back up real quick. Elon Musk knows that Matt Taibbi has a Substack. Remember when Matt Taibbi said with the first Twitter file release, remember when Matt said that the agreement was to post them on Twitter first, then he could put it on his Substack. So it's not like Elon Musk did not know that Matt Taibbi had a Substack. He knew that. And for some journalists, that is how they make an income, is their Substack. I think Glenn Greenwald announced that he left Substack. I think I got that email a couple days ago. It might have been a couple weeks ago, actually. And he was moving to locals. I think that's a whole separate thing, though. Anywho, this is how, for some journalists, this is how they make a living. And yeah, if you're already following them on Substack, great. But not everyone is. And so one of the ways you get more followers is by sharing those Substack articles on Twitter. They don't work that well on Facebook. I've tried. I'm just letting you know, I have tried. So maybe someone like me may not be as affected. I haven't written an article in over a year. I'll be getting back to that though. But someone like Matt, who does have a large Substack following, people like to read his emails. Also, people like Chris Hedges, his Substack is really great. There are a lot of independent journalists that rely on that. And so they're blocking that. And, you know, Elon is not turning out to be who we thought he was. And if I'm not mistaken, we're going to check it again. We'll do it on here. We're going to do a test. When I looked earlier, Elon Musk was not following Matt Taibbi. Watch this. Hold on. He don't have that many. He doesn't follow that many people. So it's easy to check through his who he's following. Let's play. Let's try this again. So Elon has 134 million followers, of course. But he's only following 190 people. Let's see. I tested it earlier. I'm going to check it again. Following. Whee! Let's see who he's following. I could actually just, that's something they should add where you could just search. But I already went through this, but Matt Taibbi's stands out. I am looking at this by looking at the blue checks, right? Because he is one of the blue check people. That's the easiest way to find. There's Michael Schellenberger. So he is following Michael Schellenberger. Someone screenshot this. I tested this earlier now. Maybe it has changed, but he's following Michael Schellenberger, who also is a part of the Twitter files. So take note of that. Somebody write that down. Let's keep going. We're going to go by the blue checks. That's what we want to look at. Too bad you can't sort it that way. This motherfucker following Hakeem oh God. Oh, excuse my language. I'm so sorry. But why is he following Hakeem Jeffries? That is random. Okay, let me continue. Blue checks, blue checks, blue checks. There's Greta Thunberg. Some of these I can call out if you're familiar with the people. Let's see. The Rabbit Hole. I don't know what that is. J.K. Rowling. Let's see. We're still going. Remember, he only follows 190 people. You guys know I'm nosy. That's why I check this shit. I am bad with my language tonight. God. Okay, let's keep going. He's following Emmanuel Macron. Why? His own people don't like him. Okay. Sorry. Let's keep going. He follows Glenn. Let's keep going. I'm not logged into my account, by the way. So there are people that I follow that you're not going to see. It's not going to say I follow because I'm not logged into my Twitter account. Let's continue. David Sachs. He follows Russell Brand. Let's go on. He follows Dilbert. See, earlier I didn't notice this. I was just looking for the Matt thing. All right, almost done, guys. Following the blue checks. Dogecoin. PyTorch. Victor Glover. BBC Future. We're almost there. Brett Winton. Neil deGrasse Tyson. Let's see. And going. He follows Jon Favreau. That's interesting. Kevin. BBC News. Rick and Morty. I ain't mad at him for that one. Okay, we're almost there. Looking at blue checks, blue checks, blue checks, and we're done. So he's not following Matt Taibbi. But he's still following Michael Schellenberger. I thought he was following Matt Taibbi. I thought he was. But there's that. What's that, Trauma Queen? Or Barry Weiss? He's not following her either? Oh, wait, I don't think I saw her. Interesting. Interesting. What if he followed you, Sabby? That would be weird. Trauma Queen said he isn't following Barry. So there you go. So he's not following Barry Weiss and he's not following Matt Taibbi. He is following Michael Schellenberger. So that is interesting. Doesn't need Taibbi anymore. I told you guys how I felt. Like, I really do feel like he got what he needed from those journalists. And then he let people just throw them under the bus. And like I said, I'm sorry, I'm saying this again, and you guys need to start asking this question. Notice how you don't see Elon Musk doing any interviews? Notice how you don't see him having to testify in Congress? It's his platform. His platform. So that is that. Just for fun, let's try to go like this tweet again. I wonder if it'll let me. Let's see if I try to. Yep, still can't like it. Will let me go to the Substack. See what happens? When I click on the Substack link, warning, this link may be unsafe. That can prevent people from continuing on to read the article. That's Elon. Eric, I'll take that comment on Rockfin. Crazy stuff, man. I told you this was a weird day. Crazy times. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin, Jim. Sabby shoots and scores again and again, as did Matt. That corp smugness just pisses me off, just saying. Yeah. It bothered me too. It bothered me too. Well, I think Matt did tweet, or was that an email? That might have been an email from his Substack that said he's going on vacation, which is probably much needed at this point, especially. So hopefully he can get that much needed break. But the way people are coming after him on Twitter right now is crazy. I'll be honest with you guys. If I didn't do this show, I probably wouldn't even have a Twitter account. It's toxic over there. Those of you on Twitter, you know. You know what's up. What's this, Matthew? Matt Taibbi said he will no longer use Twitter because it blocked Substacks. Then Elon unfollowed, according to Google. So he was following him. That's what I thought. Oh, man. Oh, man. Twitter is absolute trash. Oh, my God. This is too funny to me. Let me go to these comments over here. Thank you for the super chat. Zach, former Malaysian Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad took Mehdi to town when he worked on Al Jazeera in the past and schooled him like crazy. Thank you for the super chat. A kid. Sabby, Mehdi's framed all questions to diminish Taibbi's credibility, and Matt is too much of a nice guy. He should have called out Mehdi's hypocrisy. Yeah. Sometimes it's hard though when you're in it, like, you know, when you're actually going through it live. Sometimes there are things you might think of after the fact and like, oh, damn, you know, I should have said this. Oz, Mehdi is a classless thug performing a hit job on Matt, an attack that is unbecoming journalism. The tasteless, aggressive, and malicious assault on Matt is hard to stomach. MSNBS is trash. Thank you for the super chat, Disco Phil. Mehdi has a team of producers in his ear, and Matt is being pummeled. I'm so pissed about this. Let's be real. Mehdi ain't come up with those questions on his own. I'm sorry. And thank you for this, Disco Phil. Pathetic. The MSM has created a whole other reality that does not acknowledge facts, so this is useless. Thank you for the super chat, Roger. It's not too late, Sab. You can make a Twitter playlist. I'll think about that. Comrade JB says, we use Substack to notify viewers of our latest streams too. The likes increase engagement and gets more views and traffic. No likes means less views and less traffic. Elon is literally affecting money. Yeah, but he's making sure that he's making money for himself. And that's the thing. It's true. Like, thank you for the super chat, DC. Please make a Twitter Files playlist. I could do that. I'll think about it. I don't like to overcrowd the homepage, but I could do that. Speaking of Substack, make sure that you're signed up for mine, because that's how I send out my notifications. So let me go ahead and share my screen. I don't rely on YouTube notifications. It's a hit or miss. I don't even get notifications from people half the time. So if you sign up for my my newsletter, it's free. Some people donate if they want to, but I don't ask people to. But this is how people, those of you who've been with me for a while, you know about this. This is how people get my alerts when I'm going live. So the Sabby Sabs newsletter, you will get an alert, an email, usually about 15 minutes before I go live. And that way you don't have to rely on whether or not YouTube is going to notify you, because most of the time they're not, to be honest. But yeah, so you'll see all of those here. All of these went out, just to let you know. Also, if I'm appearing on a show, I'll usually announce those here as well. But I haven't written an article since, I don't even know how to find that. How do I go back? And that article was really old, so I may not ever be able to find. Oh, there it is. Nope, that's something else. I don't know what happened to that art. It's way back. That's like over a year ago. Oh, well. I don't know how to go that far back. Anywho, sign up for my Substack. That should be pinned actually to the top of the live chat. Let me see if I did that. Yeah, if you sign up for that, you'll get an email notification, let you know Sabrina's going live. I do that for the clips as well. Because again, those don't get pushed out as well. You know, in doing this job, you find workarounds, right? Twitter, it's sad though, because that actually is the one of the main reasons why we were able to grow significantly over at RBN. You know, Nick had a large Twitter following. So when RBN first started, it was actually Twitter that helped get the word out. Hey, we're here. We have a channel. So it's sad that they're doing what they're doing. It seems like to me it's just all about money now. Another way for them to make money. Dollar bill, y'all. All right. It is time for me to go. It is time for me to say goodbye. I'm not doing call-in tonight, you guys. I actually have a lot to do tomorrow, so I'll need to get up pretty early. But I will do call-in on Sunday. Probably going to start a little earlier in the day on Sunday so I can do a call-in segment, and then we'll chat over there. But dollar bill, y'all. That's from the show Empire. I don't know if you guys remember that show? Dollar bill, y'all. They keep you running for more. Dollar bill, y'all. All right, guys. I have to head out. Skadoodles. Please have a good weekend, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight. I'll upload clips this weekend. But you know how we do this. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.